There's something haunting about the whispers of the past, those fragments of history that linger just beyond our grasp, teasing us with riddles carved in stone or inked onto fragile parchment. Picture yourself in a dimly lit archive, your fingers brushing against an ancient manuscript so old it feels like holding time itself. The pages are brittle, the ink faded, yet the words seem to pulse with secrets waiting to be uncovered. This is where history's most captivating stories hide, not in the grand battles or the well-told legends, but in the shadows where myths and truths blur into something far more intriguing. Welcome to the veiled narratives of antiquity, stories beyond time, where we delve into the mysteries that have eluded historians, archaeologists, and storytellers for centuries. What is it about these forgotten tales that still sends shivers down our spines? Maybe it's the way they challenge everything we think we know. A single artifact, unearthed from the dust of a lost city, can upend decades of scholarly consensus. A cryptic symbol hidden in plain sight on a temple wall might hold the key to an entire civilization's untold story. These aren't just relics of the past, they're puzzles, daring us to piece together narratives that were never meant to be forgotten. From the submerged ruins of Atlantis to the enigmatic Voynich manuscript, history is littered with enigmas that refuse to stay silent. And the deeper we dig, the more we realize how much of our shared human story remains shrouded in mystery. This journey isn't just about uncovering facts, it's about stepping into the shoes of those who came before us, feeling the weight of their unanswered questions, and sharing in the thrill of discovery. Imagine standing at the edge of an archaeological dig, the air thick with anticipation as a team brushes away centuries of dirt to reveal something extraordinary. That's the energy we're bringing to this exploration. Together, we'll sift through the clues, weigh the theories, and maybe, just maybe, catch a glimpse of truths that have been veiled for millennia. So settle in, because what lies ahead isn't just a history lesson. It's an invitation to witness the past as it truly was, alive, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating. There's a magnetic pull to lost civilizations, those enigmatic societies that once thrived, only to vanish without a trace, leaving behind whispers of their existence. Take Atlantis, the legendary island first mentioned by Plato over 2,000 years ago. Described as a utopia of unmatched sophistication, it supposedly sank beneath the waves in a single day. Was it a cautionary tale, or could there be a kernel of truth buried beneath centuries of myth? Then there's the Indus Valley civilization, a marvel of ancient urban planning with its grid-like cities and advanced drainage systems. By the time archaeologists uncovered its ruins, the people who built them were long gone, their language still undeciphered. What happened to them? Drought, invasion, or something more mysterious? The clues they left behind only deepened the intrigue. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument's massive stone formations stretch like a sunken city, their geometric precision sparking debates. Are they natural or the work of human hands? In Turkey, the 12,000-year-old ruins of Göbekli Tepe challenge our understanding of early human society, proving that monumental architecture existed long before we thought possible. And let's not forget the Voynich manuscript, a book written in an unreadable script, filled with bizarre illustrations of plants that don't seem to exist. Was it a coded medical text, an elaborate hoax, or something far stranger? Dr. Emily Carter, a leading archaeologist specializing in ancient technologies, suggests these civilizations might have possessed knowledge far beyond what we've credited them for. She points to the Antikythra Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old Greek device often called the world's first computer, capable of predicting astronomical positions. If they could build something so precise, what else did they know? Could their disappearances hold warnings for us about environmental collapse, societal fragility, or the dangers of losing critical knowledge? The search for answers isn't just academic. Modern explorers armed with sonar and satellite imaging scour the planet for overlooked ruins, while linguists labor to crack scripts that have been silent for millennia. Every discovery, whether it's a submerged city or a cryptic inscription, feels like peeling back another layer of time. And perhaps that's the real allure, not just solving the puzzles, but touching the lives of people who, despite the centuries between us, were not so different. They built, they dreamed, and like us, they left marks on the world, hoping someone would listen. The question is, are we hearing them? Symbols have always been the silent language of civilizations, carved into stone, woven into myths, pressed into clay. They speak across millennia, yet their full meanings often slip through our fingers like sand. Consider the Ankh, that elegant Egyptian looped cross clutched in the hands of gods and pharaohs. Was it just a divine accessory, or did it hold deeper secrets? Some scholars argue it symbolized life itself, a key to both spiritual and physical vitality. Others whisper of practical uses, a blueprint for sacred geometry, perhaps, or even an ancient tool lost to time. Then there's the caduceus, twin serpents winding around a staff, today mistaken for a medical symbol, but originally a Mesopotamian emblem of commerce and negotiation. How did these meanings twist and evolve over centuries? The Ouroboros is perhaps the most haunting of all, a snake devouring its own tail, found in Egyptian tombs, Greek alchemy texts, and Norse mythology. It's a symbol so universal it feels almost instinctual. Cultures oceans apart with no known contact depicted the same endless cycle of destruction and rebirth. Was this coincidence or proof of some deeper, shared understanding of the universe? The Hopi tribe's prophecy of the blue star Kachina mirrors this idea, warning of cyclical global renewal. Even modern science echoes it. Think of DNA's double helix or the infinite loop of energy conservation. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Some symbols blur the line between myth and manual. The Sri Yantra, an intricate Hindu geometric diagram, isn't just art. It's a meditation map, its interlocking triangles said to generate spiritual energy when visualized. Similarly, the labyrinthine floor of Chartres Cathedral wasn't merely decorative. Pilgrims once walked its path as a symbolic journey to enlightenment. Could ancient symbols have been more than metaphors? Might they have been instructions, blueprints, or even technologies we no longer recognize? Take the Dendera light, a controversial carving in an Egyptian temple that some insist resembles a modern light bulb. Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss it as a symbolic depiction of a lotus flower birthing a snake, but fringe theorists ask, what if it's both? After all, the Baghdad battery, a 2,000-year-old clay jar with copper and iron components, proves ancient peoples experimented with electricity. Symbols might not just represent ideas, they could encode lost knowledge, waiting for the right eyes to decipher them. This is the heart of the mystery. These symbols weren't created in isolation. They're threads in a vast, interconnected tapestry of human thought. From the Celtic Triskelion to the Buddhist endless knot, repeating motifs suggest our ancestors were grappling with the same big questions about time, existence, and humanity's place in the cosmos. And perhaps that's their greatest gift, not just the puzzles they leave, but the reminder that curiosity itself is eternal. The next time you see an ancient symbol, don't just look at it. Listen, it might be trying to tell you something. Stories of a great flood echo across continents, whispered in the clay tablets of Mesopotamia, etched into Mayan codices and woven into the pages of Genesis. The details shift. Some speak of divine wrath, others of cosmic rebalancing, but the core remains eerily consistent. Waters swallowing the earth, a chosen few surviving to rebuild. The Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh describes Utnapishtim, warned by the gods to construct an ark before the deluge. Half a world away, the Popol Vuh tells of the Maya's wooden people washed away in a resinous tide. Even the Kayich legend of the Huracan mirrors Noah's 40 days with a storm so fierce it tore the sky apart. How could cultures separated by oceans and millennia share such specific narratives? Dr. Hiroshi Matsumoto, a comparative mythologist, points to geological evidence like the Black Sea deluge hypothesis, a catastrophic flooding event around 7,600 years ago that may have displaced entire civilizations. Similar upheavals from melting glaciers to comet impacts left scars on collective memory, but here's the twist: these stories aren't just trauma responses. The Aboriginal rainbow serpent, the Norse Jörmungandr, and the Hindu Ananta Shesha all link floods to creation, suggesting ancient peoples saw destruction and rebirth as inseparable. The Zuni tribe's tale of the Great Water even describes survivors guided by stars to new lands, strikingly similar to the Sumerian account of Utnapishtim's ark landing on Mount Nisir. Oral traditions acted as living libraries, preserving truths through rhythmic repetition and symbolic imagery. The griots of West Africa could recite genealogies spanning centuries without error. Icelandic skalds encoded history in alliterative verse, making it impossible to alter a single word without breaking the meter. These weren't just stories, they were survival tools. When the Maori recount how their ancestors navigated to Aotearoa by reading ocean currents and bird migrations, it's not myth, it's wayfinding science passed down through chance. Yet some parallels defy easy explanation. The Dogon people of Mali described Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible to the naked eye, centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. Their cosmology also mirrors Sumerian star maps, coincidence, or fragments of a shared ancestral knowledge, scattered like pottery shards across time. From the Greek Deucalion to the Chinese Gun Yu, flood myths often end with a moral. Humanity's arrogance disrupted nature's balance. Perhaps these stories aren't just records of the past, but warnings and invitations to listen to the earth again. The Antikythera Mechanism sits in a museum case like a challenge thrown across 2,000 years, a bronze puzzle of gears and dials far too precise for its time. Discovered in a shipwreck off the Greek coast, this intricate device could predict lunar eclipses, track planetary movements, and even calculate the dates of the Olympic Games. Its gears interlock with a complexity that wouldn't reappear in Europe until the mechanical clocks of the 14th century. How did a civilization without modern tools craft something that feels shockingly ahead of its time? Then there's the Baghdad battery, a humble clay jar from 2,000 years ago, found with a copper cylinder and iron rod inside. When filled with vinegar or lemon juice, it produces a measurable electric current. Was it used for electroplating jewelry, as some experiments suggest, or did it serve a purpose we've yet to uncover? Nearby, the Inca stonework of Sacsayhuaman baffles engineers to this day. Massive blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together so tightly that not even a razor blade can slip between them. No mortar, no chisel marks, just seamless perfection. Dr. Lena Petrov, an archaeologist specializing in ancient innovation, argues these aren't isolated flukes but fragments of a forgotten scientific tradition. She points to texts like the Vedas, which describe flying machines called vimanas, or the works of Hero of Alexandria, who built steam-powered devices in the 1st century. Were these inventions lost to war, disaster, or simply the slow erosion of time? Or could there be another explanation? Sacred sites add another layer to the mystery. The Great Pyramid's alignment with true north is more accurate than the Greenwich Observatory. The Nazca lines, visible only from the air, form geometric patterns and animal figures that stretch for miles. Were they landing strips for celestial visitors, as some fringe theorists claim, or something more grounded yet equally astonishing? Perhaps they were maps, astronomical calendars, or even resonant chambers designed to harness sound frequencies we're only now beginning to understand. What ties these anomalies together isn't just their sophistication, but the questions they force us to ask. Did ancient cultures possess knowledge that was later suppressed or erased? Could they have tapped into natural energies or mathematical principles we've only recently rediscovered? Or is the truth even more intriguing, that innovation isn't linear but cyclical, rising and falling with the tides of history? Every time we uncover another artifact that defies expectations, we're reminded that the past is far less predictable and far more inventive than we've been taught. Standing beneath the towering stones of Stonehenge as dawn breaks on the summer solstice, it's impossible not to feel the weight of intention behind their placement. The heel stone aligns perfectly with the rising sun, casting a beam of light that slices through the ancient pillars like a celestial knife. Halfway across the world, the Great Pyramid of Giza's shafts point directly to Orion's belt, while Machu Picchu's Intihuatana stone becomes a shadowless sundial during the equinoxes. These aren't accidental alignments, they're deliberate, calculated connections to the cosmos. But why? Were these sites merely calendars etched in stone, or did they serve a purpose we've yet to comprehend? Dr. Raj Patel, an astronomer who's spent decades studying these alignments, suggests they functioned as both observatories and spiritual interfaces. The ancients didn't separate science from the sacred, he explains. To track the stars was to commune with the gods. At Newgrange in Ireland, a narrow passage floods with sunlight only on the winter solstice, illuminating inner chambers for 17 minutes, a fleeting moment of divine light orchestrated with breathtaking precision. Similarly, the Maya's El Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza features windows aligned to Venus's most significant risings and settings, a planet they revered as the god Kukulkan. Yet some theories push beyond the earthly. The Dogon people's knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible without telescopes, has fueled speculation about extraterrestrial contact. Could the Nazca lines, massive geoglyphs only visible from the air, have been messages to celestial visitors? Or consider the 3,000-year-old temple of Mnajdra in Malta, where solstice sunlight enters through a pinhole aperture to strike specific carvings, a feat requiring advanced understanding of optics. These aren't just monuments, they're puzzles crafted in stone, challenging our assumptions about ancient technological capabilities. Then there's the Enigma of Teotihuacan, where the Pyramid of the Sun aligns with the Pleiades cluster every 52 years, a cycle central to Mesoamerican cosmology. The precision is staggering. The pyramid's base perimeter equals 100 times its height, echoing mathematical constants found in nature. Could these structures be vibrational resonators, as acoustic studies at Hypogeum Hal Saflieni in Malta suggest? Its subterranean chambers amplify specific frequencies, creating trance-inducing echoes that might have been used in rituals. The debate between human ingenuity and otherworldly influence persists, but perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. The builders of these sites observed patterns we're only now rediscovering: the Fibonacci sequence in Hindu temple designs, the golden ratio in Greek architecture. Maybe they tapped into a universal language of geometry and energy, one that modern science is beginning to decode. As we stand in the shadows of these ancient wonders, we're left with more than just questions. We're handed an invitation to look up, to listen, and to remember that the sky once spoke directly to those who knew how to read it. Buried in the bedrock of a Texas creek bed in 1936, the London hammer remains one of history's most perplexing riddles. Encased in stone dated to over 400 million years old, this iron and wood tool defies every conventional timeline of human technological development. How could a hammer, with its unmistakably modern craftsmanship, exist in strata formed eons before humans walked the earth? Skeptics argue it's a miner's lost tool, encased in quickly hardened sediment, but metallurgists note its iron purity lacks the slag found in 19th century industry. The mystery deepens with the Dorchester pot, a bell-shaped metal vase discovered in Massachusetts coal deposits from the Precambrian era, a time when multicellular life hadn't even evolved. Its intricate floral inlays suggest a level of artistry impossible for its supposed age. These out-of-place artifacts, or OOPArts, aren't just curiosities, they're fractures in the foundation of accepted history. Take the Ayod wedge, a wedge-shaped aluminum object found in Romania beneath layers of Pleistocene fossil bones. Aluminum wasn't smelted until the 19th century, yet this object lay buried for tens of thousands of years. Then there's the Wolf's Egg iron cube, a perfect geometric form pulled from Austrian coal in 1885. Its surface too smooth and edges too precise to be a natural formation. Mainstream archaeology dismisses these as misdated or misidentified, but the sheer volume of such anomalies begs an unsettling question. What if our linear narrative of progress is incomplete? Dr. Maria Lopez, a geologist who's studied these artifacts for decades, warns against rushing to sensational conclusions. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, she cautions, pointing to cases like the infamous Ica stones hoaxes carved with depictions of dinosaurs and advanced surgery. Yet even she admits some OOPArts resist easy dismissal. The Antikythera Mechanism was once dismissed as too advanced for its time, until modern imaging revealed its intricate gearwork. Could other anomalies be misunderstood remnants of lost knowledge? The implications ripple far beyond academic debate. If even one of these artifacts is genuine, it rewrites chapters of human history. Ancient texts like the Mahabharata describe flying machines and catastrophic weapons eerily reminiscent of modern technology. The Baghdad battery hints at forgotten electrical experimentation. And the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513, depicts Antarctica's coastline with impossible accuracy, centuries before its official discovery. Were these flukes or echoes of a cycle where civilizations rise, fall, and leave only cryptic traces behind? Perhaps the most profound lesson of OOPArts isn't about proving alternate histories, but about humility. Every time we assume we've mapped the boundaries of ancient ingenuity, the past throws another curveball. Whether hoaxes, misinterpretations, or genuine mysteries, these artifacts force us to question not just what we know, but how we know it. In the end, they're less about rewriting history than reminding us that history is far stranger and far more expansive than we've dared to imagine. History is often written by those who hold the quill and the power. For every grand temple inscription celebrating a pharaoh's conquest, there are 100 untold stories buried in the silence of the defeated. Take the Library of Alexandria, that legendary beacon of ancient knowledge reduced to ashes. Its destruction didn't just burn books, it erased entire cultures, philosophies, and perspectives from the record. What might we have learned from the scrolls of Carthage, scrawled by hands that Rome later silenced, or the oral epics of the indigenous Taino people, drowned out by Columbus's arrival? The past isn't just incomplete, it's deliberately skewed, curated by victors to shape how future generations would remember them. This isn't just about missing pieces, it's about whose voices were deemed unworthy of preservation. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, a historian specializing in African antiquity, points to the Nubian kingdoms as a prime example. While Egypt's pyramids dominate textbooks, Nubia's sprawling cities like Meroe, with their own pyramids and advanced ironworking, were relegated to footnotes. Why? Because Greek and Roman chroniclers, dazzled by Egypt, often painted Nubia as a shadowy other. Only now, through artifacts like the Meroitic script still only partially deciphered, are we beginning to hear these muted voices. But how do we reconstruct truths when the evidence is fragmented or erased? Oral histories offer one path. The griots of West Africa have preserved genealogies and events through song for centuries, with rhythmic structures designed to prevent alteration. In Australia, Aboriginal songlines encode navigation routes and creation stories across thousands of miles, passed down for over 60,000 years. These aren't just stories, they're living archives resistant to the burnings and bans that ravaged written records, yet some gaps may never be filled. The Maya codices that survived Spanish purges number in the single digits mere glimpses of a literary tradition once vast enough to fill libraries. When Bishop Diego de Landa ordered their destruction in the 16th century, he didn't just burn bark paper books, he severed a thread connecting us to a civilization's inner world. Today, scholars painstakingly piece together Maya history from surviving fragments and colonial-era transcriptions, but the bias is baked in. Most secondary accounts come from the conquerors themselves. Hope lingers in unexpected places. Clandestine archives like the Gnostic Gospels hidden in jars at Nag Hammadi, or the Dead Sea Scrolls tucked into desert caves, remind us that suppressed voices often find ways to endure. Modern technology offers new tools. Multispectral imaging can resurrect faded ink on reused parchment, while AI cross-references linguistic patterns to reconstruct lost languages. Every recovered word is a small rebellion against historical erasure. The search for these narratives isn't just academic, it's a moral reckoning. When we question dominant accounts, whether Herodotus's tales or colonial chronicles, we don't just correct the record. We honor those who are written out of their own stories. Behind every mysterious ruin or unknown culture labeled by early archaeologists, there were people who knew their truth. Our job isn't just to listen for their whispers in the artifacts they left behind, but to amplify them. After all, history isn't a monologue, it's a chorus, and some of its most vital voices have been waiting centuries to be heard. Beneath the Vatican's hallowed halls, locked away behind doors that require papal permission to open, lies a trove of secrets that could rewrite history. The Vatican's secret archives stretch over 50 miles of shelves, holding everything from trial transcripts of the Knights Templar to letters penned by Michelangelo. But it's the texts that weren't meant to be found that spark the wildest speculation, like the Apocrypha, early Christian writings excluded from the Bible for challenging orthodox doctrine. Among them, the Gospel of Thomas claims Jesus whispered hidden knowledge to his disciples, while the Book of Enoch describes fallen angels teaching humanity forbidden arts. Why were these texts buried? Were they heresy or truths too dangerous for their time? Half a world away, the Dunhuang Caves in China conceal another library of lost voices. Sealed in the 11th century to protect them from invaders, these caverns held over 40,000 manuscripts, Buddhist sutras painted on silk, star charts mapping celestial movements, and even the Diamond Sutra, the oldest printed book in existence. But it's the more unsettling finds that intrigue scholars. Medical texts detailing advanced surgeries, maps with coastlines not officially discovered for centuries, and scrolls referencing technologies like self-moving chariots. Dr. Sofia Ivanov, a historian of medieval science, has spent years decoding alchemical manuscripts from these collections. She argues that symbols long dismissed as mystical nonsense, like the Ouroboros or the Philosopher's Stone, may actually encode chemical processes, such as purifying metals or creating early batteries. What we call magic was often just science not yet understood, she notes. Then there are the players behind the scenes, the secret societies and monastic orders who acted as custodians of this knowledge. The Rosicrucians claim to inherit wisdom from ancient Egypt, while the Freemasons' rituals are laced with architectural symbolism that mirrors sacred geometry found in pyramids and cathedrals. Were these groups preserving truth or selectively editing it to maintain power? The Voynich manuscript, possibly created by medieval alchemists, remains unreadable despite centuries of effort. Is its cipher a genuine language or an elaborate ruse to guard secrets too explosive to share? The deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes. History's hidden texts aren't just curiosities. They are fragments of a puzzle, suggesting that the past was far more interconnected and far more ingenious than we've been taught. Whether it's a monk's marginal notes hinting at forgotten inventions or a map that shouldn't exist, these documents whisper a tantalizing question: how much of what we know is just the version someone wanted us to believe? The symbols etched into Freemason lodges and Rosicrucian manuscripts aren't just decorative, they're a silent language, a code passed down through generations. Take the Eye of Providence, that familiar triangle-topped symbol on the U.S. dollar bill. To most, it's a vague representation of divine oversight, but to initiates, it's layered with older meanings. Dr. Elias Finch, a historian specializing in esoteric traditions, traces its lineage back to the Eye of Horus, an Egyptian emblem of protection and royal power. The same symbol appears in Renaissance alchemical texts, where it represents the all-seeing intellect of the philosopher. How did an ancient Egyptian motif end up in Enlightenment-era secret societies? The answer might lie in the mystery schools of Alexandria, where Greek, Egyptian, and Hebrew wisdom fused into what we now call Hermeticism, a tradition claiming to hold the keys to cosmic truths. Freemasonry's rituals only deepen the intrigue. Their initiation ceremonies, with blindfolds and symbolic tools like the compass and square, mirror descriptions of ancient Egyptian rites where neophytes underwent trials to prove their worth. Even the Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff, a master architect murdered for refusing to reveal secret knowledge, echoes the story of Osiris, dismembered by Set and later resurrected. These aren't random parallels. Dr. Finch's research suggests medieval stonemason guilds, traveling between Europe and the Middle East during the Crusades, absorbed fragments of these older traditions. By the 1700s, these fragments had crystallized into the elaborate symbolism of modern Freemasonry, but the Rosicrucians add another twist. Their manifesto, the Fama Fraternitatis, published in 1614, claimed to inherit wisdom from a mythical figure named Christian Rosicrucians, who supposedly studied with sages in Damascus and Fez. The text describes hidden vaults filled with futuristic inventions, perpetual motion machines, speaking statues, and calls for a universal reformation of science and spirituality. Mainstream scholars dismiss it as allegory, but fringe theorists point to odd correlations. The Rosicrucian emblem, a rose-cross hybrid, bears a striking resemblance to the Assyrian tree of life, while their insistence on invisible colleges of adepts mirrors the Pythagorean Brotherhood's secretive practices. The blur between preservation and fabrication becomes even murkier when examining historical cover-ups. In 1793, French revolutionary forces ransacked the archives of the Knights Templar, burning documents that allegedly detailed heretical beliefs. Napoleon later seized thousands of manuscripts from the Vatican, some of which vanished en route to Paris. Even the infamous Prieuré de Sion hoax of the 1960s, claiming a secret society had guarded Jesus's bloodline, was built around genuine medieval parchments, expertly forged to exploit public fascination. So were these groups genuine custodians of ancient wisdom or shrewd mythmakers? The answer might lie in between. Symbols like the Eye of Providence aren't just relics, they're evolving ideas, adapting to each era's needs. Whether used to encode spiritual truths or consolidate power, their endurance suggests something deeper: humanity's unshakable longing to believe that hidden knowledge still waits just beyond our grasp. And perhaps that's the real secret they've always guarded. Archaeological discoveries should rewrite history, but what happens when they vanish before reaching the public? The Smithsonian Institution, guardian of America's most prized artifacts, has long been dogged by rumors of suppressed finds, particularly the so-called giant skeletons, reportedly unearthed in Native American burial mounds during the 19th century. Newspapers from that era describe bones belonging to individuals over 7 feet tall, sometimes with double rows of teeth. Yet today, these specimens are nowhere to be found in the Smithsonian's collections. Officials dismiss the claims as hoaxes or misidentified mastodon remains, but leaked documents from the early 1900s reference crates of unusual skeletal material shipped to undisclosed locations. Were these simply misplaced or deliberately hidden because they didn't fit the narrative of human evolution? Turkey's Derinkuyu adds another layer to the mystery. This massive underground city, carved from volcanic rock, stretches 18 stories deep with space for 20,000 people. Mainstream archaeology dates it to the Byzantine era, but local legends insist it's far older, a refuge from some forgotten cataclysm. Even more intriguing are the sections sealed off by the government, accessible only with military clearance. Thermal scans reveal vast chambers beyond the tourist routes, their purpose unknown. Dr. Anita Desai, an archaeologist who's worked on contested sites worldwide, confirms the unspoken pressure to conform. Funding flows to projects that reinforce established timelines, she explains. Dig outside those boundaries and you risk your reputation or your permit. Technology is now peeling back the veil. LiDAR scans in the Amazon uncovered sprawling urban networks beneath the jungle, proving pre-Columbian civilizations were far more advanced than textbooks claimed. Ground-penetrating radar in Egypt detected hidden chambers near Tutankhamun's tomb, hinting at undiscovered royal burials. Even AI is joining the hunt, analyzing satellite imagery to pinpoint thousands of potential sites from Mesopotamia to Peru. These tools don't just find new artifacts, they expose gaps in the official record. Why were certain ruins ignored for centuries? The real question isn't just about what's been hidden, but why. Challenging academic consensus can upend careers, shake cultural identities, even threaten political narratives. When Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology confirmed the existence of a second, older pyramid inside Chichén Itzá, it quietly revised the site's history, but didn't announce the discovery for over a year. Meanwhile, private collectors hoard artifacts that could rewrite history, like the Fuente Magna bowl in Bolivia, covered in Proto-Sumerian script that suggests transoceanic contact millennia before Columbus. Perhaps the greatest cover-up isn't orchestrated malice, but the slow erasure of inconvenient truths by inertia and institutional bias. Every time a drone reveals a lost city or a database deciphers a forgotten script, we're reminded history isn't a static monolith. It's a living, breathing story, and we've only just begun to read between the lines. Technology is tearing down the walls between us and the past, revealing secrets our ancestors never intended us to find. Take LiDAR, that laser-powered eye in the sky which recently stripped away the Amazon's green veil to expose a sprawling network of causeways, pyramids, and agricultural terraces. These aren't the scattered villages we once imagined, but complex urban centers supporting millions. The Kuhukugu site alone spans over 7,000 square miles, with road systems rivaling Rome's. Suddenly, the pristine wilderness myth collapses, replaced by evidence of a civilization that shaped the jungle itself. Meanwhile, ground-penetrating radar pulses through Egyptian sands, mapping hidden tunnels beneath the Sphinx and voids in the Great Pyramid that hint at chambers untouched for millennia. Each scan feels like turning a page in a book we thought we'd already read. Dr. James Chen's AI breakthroughs add another dimension. His algorithms chew through untranslated scripts like Linear A, the mysterious language of Bronze Age Crete, at speeds that would take human linguists centuries. By cross-referencing symbol patterns with known languages, the AI has already identified potential grammatical structures, though the meanings remain elusive. Even more tantalizing are its detections in the Voynich manuscript, where recurrent word clusters suggest it might not be a hoax after all, but a genuine cipher waiting for its Rosetta Stone. Yet for every puzzle solved, technology unveils 10 more. Satellite thermal imaging shows vast geometric patterns beneath the Sahara's dunes, while ice-penetrating radar reveals possible human-made structures under Antarctica's glaciers continents apart, yet equally enigmatic. What makes these tools revolutionary isn't just their precision, but their impartiality. They don't cherry-pick evidence to fit academic dogma. When LiDAR exposed Mayan megalopolises in Guatemala, it didn't just expand our map, it shattered the assumption that tropical soils couldn't sustain large populations. Similarly, AI analysis of the Dead Sea Scrolls detected multiple scribble hands in texts long attributed to single authors, rewriting our understanding of ancient collaboration. The past isn't changing, our perception of it is, yet the greatest revelation might be how little we still know. 90% of the world's archaeological sites remain undiscovered, and of those excavated, most have only been scratched at the surface. As drones map Peru's Nazca lines in unprecedented detail, they uncover previously invisible geoglyphs, some so large they can only be recognized from space. What does that imply about their creators' intentions? And when sonar reveals sunken monoliths off Japan's Yonaguni coast, their right angles and staircases whispering of a drowned civilization, we're forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Human history could be far older and far stranger than any textbook dares to suggest. Perhaps that's the real gift of this technological renaissance, not just answers but humility. Every time we develop a new way to look, the past shows us something we never expected. And somewhere in those uncharted depths, beneath deserts and ice sheets and jungles, the footsteps of those who came before us wait to be heard. Graham Hancock's controversial theory lingers like a ghost at the edges of conventional archaeology. What if everything we've been taught about the dawn of civilization is incomplete? He proposes a radical idea: an advanced global culture thrived during the last ice age, only to be obliterated by a catastrophic flood around 12,000 years ago. The evidence, he argues, isn't just in the gaps of our knowledge, but in the anomalies that defy explanation. Take the Yonaguni monument off Japan's coast, a submerged structure of massive stone terraces, right angles, and staircases that look unnaturally precise. Marine geologists like Dr. Emma Torres caution that erosion can mimic human craftsmanship, but even she concedes the site's uncanny symmetry raises questions. If nature carved Yonaguni, why do its features align so strikingly with ceremonial structures found in Peru or Egypt? the debate intensifies when you examine the parallels. From Göbekli Tepe's towering pillars built by hunter-gatherers who supposedly lacked the tools for such feats, to the submerged ruins of Dwarka off India's coast, described in ancient texts as Krishna's city before it sank, the world is littered with sites that don't fit neatly into the timeline. Dr. Torres points out the lack of conclusive artifacts at Yonaguni, like tools or pottery, but Hancock counters with a haunting possibility. What if the evidence is underwater, buried beneath millennia of silt, or worse, pulverized by the very cataclysm that erased this civilization? Then there's the climatological record. The Younger Dryas period, roughly 12,800 years ago, saw Earth's temperatures plummet and then rebound violently within decades. Some scientists attribute this to a comet impact, pointing to nanodiamonds and melted glass scattered across North America, materials formed under extreme heat and pressure. Indigenous legends from the Hopi to the Norse describe a great fire from the sky followed by floods. Could these be fragmented memories of a real event? The implications ripple far beyond academic squabbles. If a precursor civilization existed, its disappearance would be a cautionary tale about fragility. The Antikythra Mechanism proves ancient Greeks had technology we didn't credit them for. What else might have been lost? Hancock's critics dismiss him as a pseudo-archaeologist, but even skeptics admit the archaeological record has holes. The Clovis people, long considered America's first inhabitants, now share the stage with older sites like White Sands, where footprints date back 23,000 years. Perhaps the most provocative question isn't whether such a civilization existed, but why the idea unsettles us so deeply. It challenges the linear narrative of human progress, suggesting that advancement isn't inevitable, that societies can rise, fall, and leave barely a trace. As sonar maps more sunken landscapes and satellites reveal buried geometries, we're forced to confront a humbling thought. The past might be far stranger and far more resilient than we ever imagined. The Great Sphinx of Giza has stared unblinking across the desert for millennia, but its weathered limestone body tells a story that doesn't quite fit the official timeline. According to mainstream Egyptology, the Sphinx was carved around 2500 BCE during Pharaoh Khafre's reign. But when geologist Dr. Robert Schock examined its erosion patterns, he found something startling: deep vertical fissures and undulating curves that looked less like wind and sand erosion and more like the effects of prolonged, heavy rainfall. Rainfall that hasn't drenched the Sahara in at least 7,000 years. If Schock's analysis is correct, the Sphinx could be twice as old as we've been led to believe, dating back to a time when the region was lush and green. This theory sends shockwaves through traditional archaeology. Egyptologists argue that no known civilization existed in the area capable of such monumental craftsmanship 6,000 years before the pyramids. But Schock counters with a haunting question. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Could an advanced culture have thrived there, only to vanish without leaving behind the pottery shards and tools we typically associate with ancient societies? The debate isn't just academic, it challenges our understanding of human progress. If the Sphinx is older, what else have we misstated? The plot thickens when you examine other anomalies. The Osirian at Abydos, a structure buried under layers of silt, features megalithic blocks and architectural styles that resemble much older pre-dynastic work rather than the polished craftsmanship of New Kingdom Egypt. Then there's the mysterious underground complex at the Hawara Labyrinth, described by Herodotus as containing 3,000 rooms, now lost beneath the water table. Even the Sphinx's proportions raise eyebrows. Its head appears disproportionately small, leading some to speculate it was recarved from an earlier, possibly non-human figure. Genetic research adds another layer to the puzzle. studies of ancient Egyptian mummies reveal unexpected haplogroups, genetic markers suggesting contact with populations as far-flung as the Caucasus and sub-Saharan Africa, far earlier than previously documented. Could these genetic threads hint at a forgotten network of trade or migration that predates dynastic Egypt? The real takeaway isn't just about revising dates, it's about humility. Every time we assume we've mapped the boundaries of ancient achievement, the ground shifts beneath us. Whether the Sphinx's erosion came from rain or some other force, its silent presence reminds us that history is never as settled as it seems. And somewhere beneath the desert sands, the truth waits, patient as the Sphinx itself. Hidden in the double helix of our DNA are whispers of ancestors we never knew existed, ghosts of the human family tree. The discovery of the Denisovans, a sister group to Neanderthals, sent shockwaves through anthropology when their genetic fingerprints were found in modern Siberians and Tibetans. Yet what's truly staggering is this: these enigmatic people, identified only through a finger bone and a few teeth in a Siberian cave, left behind more than fossils. They gifted some of us genes that improve oxygen absorption at high altitudes, a living legacy etched into the bodies of modern Sherpas. But the Denisovans might just be the beginning. Geneticist Dr. Priya Kapoor's research points to even stranger possibilities: fragments of DNA in West African populations that match no known hominin species. These genetic shadows suggest a ghost population, an entirely unknown branch of humanity that interbred with our ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. Could these lost cousins be the source of myths that span continents? The indigenous stories of the Solomon Islands speak of the Kakamora, small, fierce people who lived in the forests, echoing descriptions of Homo floresiensis, the real-life hobbits discovered in Indonesia. In the Caucasus, legends of the Olmers, hairy wild men, mirror Neanderthal reconstructions. Even the Bible's Nephilim, the giants who walked the earth, take on new resonance when we consider that some Denisovans stood nearly 7 feet tall, according to skeletal reconstructions. Science is revealing that these tales might not be pure fantasy, but fractured memories of real encounters with other human species. The implications rewrite our understanding of prehistory. For decades, we pictured human evolution as a straight line from ape to modern man. Now, genetic mapping reveals a tangled web of interbreeding Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, and potentially others across Africa. Dr. Kapoor's team found that some Amazonian tribes carry traces of DNA from an unknown ancestor, distinct from any known hominin. This genetic mosaic suggests our ancestors didn't simply replace other human species. They absorbed them, weaving their strengths into our collective survival. What haunts researchers most isn't just the diversity we've lost, but the realization of how fragile our own existence might be. The Denisovans thrived for hundreds of thousands of years before vanishing, just as Neanderthals did, just as countless other human cousins did. Their legacy lives on in our immune systems, our skin pigmentation, even our susceptibility to diseases. We aren't the end point of human evolution. We're the last survivors of a much richer family. And somewhere in our genes, in those silent strands of junk DNA, the stories of those who didn't make it are still waiting to be read. The pursuit of eternal life might seem like pure fantasy today, but for the alchemists of ancient China, it was a deadly serious science. Deep in the imperial courts, Taoist scholars toiled over steaming cauldrons, mixing cinnabar, gold, and rare herbs in their quest for the elusive elixir of life. Emperors like Qin Shi Huang drank these concoctions eagerly, some recipes laced with mercury, others with powdered jade, only to succumb to poisoning rather than immortality. Yet buried within these fatal experiments lay something extraordinary: early breakthroughs in chemistry. Dr. Felix Weber's recreations of Tang Dynasty alchemical texts reveal that some elixirs contained real medicinal compounds. A 9th century formula with arsenic sulfide, for instance, showed surprising antibacterial properties, while gold-infused solutions may have inadvertently pioneered early nanoparticle medicine. Half a world away, the legendary Hermes Trismegistus penned the Emerald Tablet, proclaiming, "As above, so below," a mantra that fused celestial patterns with earthly transformations. His followers in Alexandria didn't just seek to turn lead into gold. They believed true alchemy was the refinement of the human soul. The irony, their laboratory techniques laid the groundwork for modern chemistry. Distillation, sublimation, even early acid production all emerged from these mystical workshops. When medieval alchemists like Jabir ibn Hayyan described dissolving metals in strong waters, they were unknowingly documenting the discovery of nitric acid. What we dismiss as superstition was often meticulous observation cloaked in symbolic language. The line between magic and proto-science blurs further when examining parallel traditions. In India, Ayurvedic Rasayana texts detailed mercury-based remedies with startling parallels to Chinese alchemy. Meanwhile, European adepts like Paracelsus prescribed metallic tinctures that modern studies suggest could modulate immune responses. These weren't random guesses, they were systematic trials recording failures as carefully as successes. A surviving Ming Dynasty manuscript lists over 200 elixir variations, noting which caused swift death and which granted temporary vigor. Perhaps immortality was never the real goal. The alchemists' true legacy might be their relentless curiosity, their willingness to test the boundaries of nature, even at great personal cost. In their cryptic symbols and poisoned chalices, we find the roots of pharmacology, metallurgy, and even quantum physics. After all, what is the philosopher's stone if not the ancient world's version of the Higgs boson, a unifying principle just beyond reach? Their methods seem strange to us now, but their questions echo in every modern lab. How do we transform matter? What secrets lie hidden in the elements? And most hauntingly, how far can human ingenuity stretch before nature pushes back? The Dogon people of Mali have guarded a celestial secret for generations, a knowledge so precise it defies easy explanation. According to their oral traditions passed down through griots for centuries, the star system Sirius consists not of one but two stars, the bright Sirius A and an invisible companion they call Po Tolo, a dense, heavy star that orbits its larger twin. Modern astronomy confirmed this in the 19th century with the discovery of Sirius B, a white dwarf star so faint it's impossible to see without powerful telescopes. Yet the Dogon didn't just know it existed, they described its elliptical orbit, its 50-year rotational period, and even its composition as a small but weighty star. Anthropologist Dr. Aisha Mbe spent years living among the Dogon, documenting their astronomical lore. She found star maps woven into ritual masks and encoded in dance patterns, suggesting this wasn't just lucky speculation, but a sophisticated system of knowledge preservation. This precision isn't isolated. Half a world away, Babylonian clay tablets from 2,000 years ago detail planetary movements with mathematical rigor that rivals modern calculations. The Venus tablet of Amasajuka, dating to the 17th century BCE, tracks the planet's risings and settings with near-perfect accuracy. Their astronomers didn't just observe the skies, they predicted lunar eclipses using the Saros cycle, a complex pattern repeating every 18 years. How did cultures separated by continents and millennia achieve such feats without lenses or satellites? One theory points to a shared ancestral source. The Dogon Sirius lore mirrors descriptions in ancient Egyptian texts, where Sirius was linked to the goddess Isis and her hidden counterpart, Greek historian Herodotus even claimed Egyptian priests showed him star records dating back over 40,000 years. Could fragments of an older global astronomy have survived in fragments, passed through initiatory lineages, or encoded in myth? Dr. Mbe cautions against romanticizing this idea, noting that oral traditions are living sciences, refined over generations through meticulous observation. The Dogon, for instance, tracks Sirius's position using landmarks on the Bandiagara escarpment, turning the landscape itself into a celestial calendar. Yet the alternative independent discovery is equally staggering. Babylonian astronomers worked without telescopes, yet their calculations of Jupiter's orbit preserved on the MUL. Apin tablets deviate from Nazca models by mere minutes. Mayan codices predict Venus's cycle centuries in advance, while Aboriginal songlines map the Milky Way's dark Emu constellation with uncanny precision. These weren't just rituals, they were rigorous sciences born from lifetimes of watching the night sky. The real mystery isn't whether ancient astronomers knew more than we thought, it's why we ever assumed they knew less. Their achievements force us to rethink the boundaries of human ingenuity. Without computers or glass lenses, they mapped the heavens with nothing but patience, curiosity, and the naked eye. And somewhere in their star charts and oral hymns, the cosmos still whispers its oldest secrets. The Voynich manuscript sits in Yale University's Beinecke Library like a riddle wrapped in vellum, a 240-page book written in a script no one alive can read, illustrated with plants that don't seem to grow on this earth. Carbon dated to the early 15th century, its pages brim with curling herbal diagrams, astrological charts featuring zodiac symbols no culture recognizes, and naked women bathing in what might be veins or rivers of green liquid. For 6 centuries, everyone from World War II codebreakers to modern AI algorithms has tried and failed. To crack its cipher, linguist Dr. Henry Zhu describes it as the ultimate linguistic black hole, a text that absorbs every attempt at translation without yielding a single coherent word. The most advanced machine learning models have scanned its symbols for patterns, only to conclude its structure doesn't match any known language. So what are we missing? One theory suggests the manuscript isn't a language at all, but a constructed script, an elaborate personal cipher, or even an artistic experiment. Medieval alchemists often invented secret alphabets to protect their recipes, and the Voynich's dense, looping characters bear similarities to these esoteric codes. But here's the catch. Statistical analysis reveals the text follows Zipf's law, a linguistic principle seen in natural languages where certain words recur predictably. This implies the manuscript isn't random gibberish, but a system with rules. Dr. Zhu's team found that its word lengths and repetitions mirror Romance languages, yet no Latin, Italian, or Spanish cognates emerge. Could it be a lost dialect or something more radical, a language isolate like Basque with no known relatives? Then there's the art. Botanists have spent decades trying to match the manuscript's plants to real species with unsettling results. Some resemble New World flora like sunflowers and peppers, plants Europeans wouldn't have known before Columbus. Others, like the Voynich nymphea, depict twisted roots and bulbous leaves that defy botanical classification. Radiologist Dr. Lisa Fajan Davis, who studied the book's pigments, notes an even stranger detail. The paint contains traces of a mineral found only in the Tyrol region, yet the script's stylistic quirks suggest a Central European scribe. How did these elements converge? The hoax hypothesis lingers too. In the 16th century, Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph Roman II reportedly paid 600 gold ducats for the book, convinced it held occult secrets. Could an enterprising forger have crafted nonsense to exploit Renaissance Europe's hunger for mysteries? Skeptics point to the curse of the Voynich, the way its symbols tease familiarity without ever resolving into meaning like a mirage. Yet modern imaging reveals layers of careful corrections in the ink, suggesting the author wasn't doodling randomly but composing with intent. Perhaps the truth lies between the lines. Medieval monasteries produced countless herbals and star charts, blending science with mysticism. The Voynich might be a pharmacopoeia for ailments we no longer recognize, or a devotional text encoding heresies too dangerous to speak aloud. Its very indecipherability has become its message, a reminder that the past guards its secrets fiercely, and some doors resist every key. After 600 years, the manuscript's greatest lesson might be humility, the recognition that history doesn't owe us answers, only mysteries that keep us reaching. The Piri Reis map of 1513 shouldn't exist, at least not with the details it contains. Drawn on gazelle hide by the Ottoman admiral after whom it's named, this fragmentary world chart shows the eastern coast of South America with eerie accuracy. But it's the lower section that sends chills down historians' spines, an unmistakable outline of Antarctica's northern coastline, completely free of ice. The problem: Antarctica's ice cap formed millions of years ago, and humans only confirmed the continent's existence in 1820. Even more perplexing, the landmass on the map aligns shockingly well with subglacial topography revealed by modern seismic surveys, details no 16th century explorer could have known. Dr. Luis Ortega, a cartographic historian at the University of Barcelona, has spent a decade analyzing the map's annotations. Piri Reis himself wrote that he compiled it from 20 older sources, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great. Could one of those lost documents have preserved knowledge from a seafaring civilization that glimpsed Antarctica during a prehistoric warm period? The evidence mounts when examining other anomalous maps. The Oron's fine world map of 1531 shows a southern continent roughly where Antarctica lies, while the Buach map from 1737 depicts an ice-free landmass with mountain ranges matching modern sonar readings beneath 2 miles of ice. Then there are the maps hinting at lands that don't appear in any modern atlas. The Mercator map of 1569 includes Hyperborea, a legendary northern paradise described by Greek historians as bathed in eternal sunlight. Medieval Portolan charts depict islands like Friesland and High Brassel in the North Atlantic, places sailors claimed to visit as late as the 1700s before they vanished from maps entirely. Were these mere cartographic errors or echoes of actual lands swallowed by rising seas after the last ice age? The implications rewrite maritime history. Mainstream scholarship holds that global exploration unfolded gradually, Polynesians reaching South America by 1500, Vikings briefly touching North America 5 centuries earlier. But what if these were just the final chapters of a much older saga? The Zeno map of 1558 shows Greenland with startling precision, including fjords now buried under glaciers. Since Norse settlers only occupied Greenland's southern tip, who mapped its northern reaches, perhaps the most haunting clue comes from outside cartography. Plato wrote of Atlantis 9,000 years before his time, while Sumerian tablets describe the 7 wise ones who brought civilization after a great flood. These aren't just stories, they're breadcrumbs leading back to a terrifying possibility. If the Piri Reis map and its kin preserve fragments of pre-glacial geography, they suggest our ancestors may have navigated a world we can barely recognize. A world where continents wore different shapes, where seafarers might have charted coastlines now drowned or frozen. And if that's true, how much else have we forgotten? Stretching across Peru's arid plains like a colossal sketchbook left open to the sky, the Nazca lines defy simple explanation. These enormous geoglyphs, some spanning over 600 feet, depict spiders, hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric shapes so precise they could only be fully appreciated from the air. Yet they were crafted over 2,000 years ago, long before human flight. The question lingers, how did the Nazca people create these intricate designs without ever seeing their work from above? Archaeologist Dr. Carla Ruiz has spent years studying their methods. She explains how teams likely used simple ropes and stakes to scale up smaller models, a technique that would explain the near-perfect proportions. But the real mystery isn't just how they were made, it's why. One compelling theory ties the lines to water, a precious resource in one of the driest places on Earth. Dr. Ruiz's research reveals that many glyphs align with underground aquifers or converge near ancient wells. The hummingbird, for instance, points directly to a seasonal spring, while the spider's legs intersect with fissures that channel water during rare rains. Could these massive drawings have been ritual pathways, guiding pilgrims to life-giving sources, or perhaps offerings to deities believed to control the rains? The Nazca's ceramic art often depicts water rituals, and their mummies have been found with offerings of seashells, symbols of distant oceans, suggesting a deep, desperate reverence for moisture. Then there's the celestial connection. The mathematician Maria Reich, who dedicated her life to mapping the lines, noticed that some align with solstice sunrises or the rising of certain stars. The giant monkey's spiraling tail mirrors the Pleiades cluster, which the Nazca associated with the planting season, but not all the designs fit neatly into this theory. The so-called astronaut figure, with its wide eyes and floating stance, or the massive trapezoids that resemble runways, have fueled speculation about otherworldly visitors. Skeptics dismiss this as fantasy, pointing out that the trapezoids may have been ceremonial plazas, their clean lines serving as processional paths for rituals. The debate takes a darker turn when examining the purpose behind these rituals. Excavations near the lines have uncovered severed heads, likely trophies from warfare or offerings. Some researchers believe the glyphs were part of a vast ceremonial landscape where the act of walking the lines or viewing them from nearby hills triggered trance states. The Nazca's use of hallucinogenic plants, evidenced by residue in their pottery, supports the idea that the lines were portals to the spirit world, meant to bridge the earthly and the divine. What's undeniable is the Nazca's mastery of their environment. Despite the harsh climate, they transformed the desert into a canvas, using the iron-rich pebbles that coat the plateau to create contrast. By removing the top layer of stones, they exposed lighter soil beneath, making the lines visible for millennia. Modern drones have revealed even more glyphs hidden by erosion, suggesting the full scope of their work is still emerging. The Nazca lines resist easy categorization. They're not quite art, not quite writing, not quite architecture, but something in between. A language of symbols meant to be read not by humans, but by gods, ancestors, or perhaps the land itself. Every theory, water maps, star charts, ritual pathways, adds a layer to their meaning, but none fully captures their mystery, and maybe that's the point. Some secrets aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to endure, whispering across centuries to remind us how much we still don't understand. The moment Howard Carter's team breached Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, whispers of a curse began to spread. When Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, died months later from an infected mosquito bite, newspapers sensationalized his death as the pharaoh's revenge. But behind the superstition lies something far more tangible. Ancient Egyptians were masters of chemistry, and their tombs might have been laced with hidden dangers. Toxicologist Dr. Samira Farid has spent years analyzing residue from burial chambers, uncovering traces of toxic compounds like mercury and arsenic embedded in pigments and incense. These weren't accidental. Priests likely knew their properties, using them to deter grave robbers. Then there's the mold. Sealed for millennia, tombs became petri dishes for microbial growth. When researchers reopened Tutankhamun's burial chamber, they unleashed ancient spores of Aspergillus flavus, a fungus linked to respiratory failure. Dr. Farid's lab recreated the tomb's conditions, culturing samples from excavation records. The results were chilling. Certain strains could still thrive after 3,000 years, especially in lungs weakened by pre-existing conditions like Carnarvon's. The so-called curse might have been biology masquerading as magic, but the ancients didn't rely solely on poison. Architectural traps added another layer of protection. False doors, collapsing shafts, and hidden pits filled with debris appear in tombs across Luxor. One particularly clever deterrent: powdered limestone mixed into wall plaster. When disturbed, it created blinding clouds, disorienting intruders while leaving no trace of tampering. Even the tomb's layout played tricks: corridors angled to funnel sand, which could bury trespassers if triggered. What's fascinating is how science and spirituality intertwined. Spells from the Book of the Dead weren't just prayers, they were warnings, psychologically weaponized. Inscriptions promised the breath of death to violators, a phrase Dr. Farid notes could describe toxic fumes from sealed organic materials decomposing over centuries. The priests understood fear as another form of defense, layering superstition over physical threats. Modern archaeology has debunked the curse's supernatural elements, but the underlying genius remains. These weren't crude scare tactics, they were calculated systems, blending chemistry, engineering, and psychology. Every death attributed to the curse, from Carnarvon to lesser-known excavators, reflects a collision with ancient ingenuity. The real curse wasn't supernatural vengeance, it was humanity's hubris, underestimating how fiercely the past guards its secrets. And perhaps that's the lesson echoing from Tutankhamun's golden mask: some doors should never be opened lightly. The Baghdad Battery sits quietly in the National Museum of Iraq, looking like nothing more than an unassuming clay jar, until you notice the copper cylinder inside, wrapped around an iron rod. When filled with an acidic solution like vinegar or lemon juice, this 2,000-year-old artifact can produce a measurable electric current. Engineer Dr. Youssef Hassan has spent years testing replicas, confirming that these ancient cells could generate up to 2 volts of electricity, enough to power small devices or even electroplate metals. The implications are staggering. If this was indeed a primitive battery, it predates Alessandro Volta's invention by nearly 2 millennia, rewriting the timeline of human innovation. But what exactly was its purpose? One compelling theory points to electroplating. Artisans in Mesopotamia were known for gilding silver objects with thin layers of gold, a process that typically requires an electric current. Dr. Hassan's experiments show that a series of these batteries, connected in sequence, could produce enough voltage to facilitate this technique. A gold-plated artifact from the same era, examined under microscopes, reveals a uniformity that suggests something more precise than traditional mercury gilding. Could the Baghdad Battery have been part of a forgotten industrial process, lost when the knowledge faded with the fall of the Parthian Empire? Yet not all scholars are convinced. Some argue the device's output was too weak for practical use, pointing instead to a ritualistic function. Ancient temples often housed mysterious objects meant to inspire awe. Electrostatic effects from these jars could have created sparks or tingling sensations, thrilling worshippers as divine energy. Texts from the period describe sacred rites involving heavenly fire, possibly referencing early observations of electricity. The Greek historian Plutarch wrote of priests in Hierapolis using rods that produced strange forces. Could they have been describing something akin to the Baghdad battery? The debate takes another turn when examining similar artifacts. A handful of other clay jars with metal components have been found across the region, though none as intact as the Baghdad specimen. Were these isolated experiments or part of a wider technological tradition? The lack of written records leaves us guessing, but consider this: the Antikythra Mechanism was once dismissed as too advanced for its time, until modern imaging revealed its intricate gears. Could the Baghdad battery be another fragment of a sophisticated, undocumented science? Perhaps the most fascinating aspect isn't whether it was a battery, but what its existence says about ancient curiosity. Someone 2,000 years ago noticed that combining vinegar, copper, and iron produced a strange energy, and they harnessed it, whether for adornment, worship, or sheer experimentation. This small clay jar is a testament to humanity's relentless drive to uncover the secrets of the natural world. And it leaves us wondering what other inventions have been buried by time, waiting for the right hands to rediscover them. The idea that our ancestors might have encountered beings not of this world isn't just the stuff of modern sci-fi, it's woven into the oldest stories we have. Take the Sumerian Anunnaki, described in cuneiform tablets as gods who descended from the heavens to bestow knowledge upon humanity. These texts claim they taught agriculture, mathematics, even law before returning to the stars. Skeptics like astronomer Dr. Neil Clark argue these could be poetic interpretations of celestial events, comets streaking across the sky, or Venus shining unusually bright. After all, ancient cultures often personified natural phenomena, turning planets into deities and meteor showers into divine battles. But then there's the unsettling consistency. Half a world away, the Hindu Vedas speak of Vimanas, flying chariots piloted by gods, complete with detailed descriptions of their propulsion systems and weaponry. The Mahabharata even recounts aerial dogfights and explosions that sound eerily like modern warfare. Meanwhile, the Dogon people of Mali, who had no contact with these civilizations, preserved precise astronomical knowledge of Sirius B, a star invisible without telescopes. How do we explain these parallel narratives? Dr. Clark suggests a psychological angle. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures, and our brains might default to similar explanations for the unexplainable. A bright object in the sky becomes a chariot. A sudden technological leap gets attributed to divine intervention. Yet this doesn't fully account for the specificity in some accounts. The Sanskrit text Samaranganasatradhara describes Vimanas as constructed from lightweight metals with mercury-based engines, details that feel less like myth and more like technical documentation. Then there's the physical evidence or lack thereof. Ancient astronaut theorists point to artifacts like the Saqqara bird, a wooden model from Egypt that resembles a modern glider, or the Nazca lines, which some argue could be landing strips. Mainstream archaeologists counter that these are either misidentified or misdated. The Saqqara bird, for instance, lacks a tailplane, making sustained flight impossible. But the debate isn't just about individual artifacts, it's about how we interpret humanity's past. Perhaps the most compelling argument isn't about aliens at all, but about lost human ingenuity. The Antikythra Mechanism proves ancient Greeks could build complex machines. The Baghdad battery hints at forgotten experiments with electricity. Maybe the sky gods were simply advanced civilizations erased by time, their achievements mythologized by later generations. Or maybe, just maybe, the stars have always been closer than we think. Either way, these stories endure because they tap into something deeper, a curiosity about who we are and who might have come before us. Göbekli Tepe rises from the Turkish plains like a time capsule from humanity's forgotten dawn, a sprawling complex of limestone pillars carved with leaping foxes, coiled snakes, and looming vultures, all dating back 12,000 years. What makes this site revolutionary isn't just its age, but what it implies. Discovered in the 1990s by archaeologist Dr. Klaus Schmidt, these towering stone circles were built by hunter-gatherers, a people we've long assumed were too preoccupied with survival to erect monumental architecture. Yet here it stands, predating the invention of agriculture by at least 2 millennia. This flips the script on everything we thought we knew about societal evolution. For decades, the dominant narrative held that agriculture came first, that only when humans settled down to farm did they have the leisure and resources to build temples. Göbekli Tepe shatters that assumption. The sheer scale of labor required to quarry and transport these 20-ton pillars suggests organized cooperation on a level previously unimagined for nomadic peoples. Dr. Schmidt's team found no signs of permanent dwellings nearby, meaning builders likely gathered seasonally, drawn by some shared purpose we can only guess at. The pillars themselves offer clues. Their carvings aren't just decorative but symbolic, possibly mapping constellations or telling creation stories. This wasn't just a meeting place, it was a sacred anchor, a focal point for rituals that bound scattered groups together. The implications ripple far beyond archaeology. If ritual preceded agriculture, did spirituality, not just practicality, drive our ancestors toward civilization? Some researchers, like Dr. Schmidt, argue Göbekli Tepe was a pilgrimage site, drawing clans from hundreds of miles away. The bones of wild game found there, from aurochs to gazelles, hint at feasting on a massive scale. Perhaps these gatherings planted the seeds of domestication as people returned year after year, tending the land to sustain their ceremonies. It's a radical thought that gods, not grain, might have sown the first crops. Yet mysteries linger. Around 8000 BCE, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried, its pillars carefully interred under thousands of tons of earth. Was this an act of reverence or something darker? Some researchers see signs of a cultural rupture, a shift from communal rituals to private farming, rendering the old ways obsolete. Others speculate the burial preserved the site for a future generation, a message in stone waiting to be rediscovered. What's undeniable is how Göbekli Tepe humbles our modern arrogance. We imagine progress as a straight line from primitive to advanced, but the past refuses to fit neatly into boxes. These pillars stand as a testament to the complexity of our ancestors, their capacity for awe and organization long before cities or kings. Every trowel of dirt turned at the site whispers the same question: how much of human history remains buried, not just underground, but in the assumptions we've stopped challenging? From cryptic symbols etched in stone to the hum of forgotten machines, the stories we've uncovered today aren't just relics, they're whispers from a past that refuses to stay silent. Think of the Baghdad Battery, a 2,000-year-old spark of ingenuity, or the Nazca lines sprawling across the desert like a message meant for the sky. These aren't just curiosities, they're challenges, daring us to reconsider what we think we know about human history. Every unexplained artifact, every undeciphered script, is a reminder that the timeline of progress isn't straightforward. It's a winding path with detours we're still discovering. What makes these mysteries so compelling isn't just their age, but the questions they force us to ask. Could the Antikythra Mechanism have been part of a broader tradition of ancient technology, most of which was lost to time? Were the Dogon people's celestial insights passed down from an even older civilization? or proof of humanity's innate genius for observation. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes. Our ancestors were far more sophisticated than we've given them credit for. They didn't just survive, they innovated, experimented, and sought to understand the cosmos with the same hunger that drives us today. And that's the real gift of these veiled narratives. They don't just belong to historians or archaeologists. They're a shared inheritance, inviting all of us to become detectives in the greatest unsolved mystery of all, our own story. Whether it's the submerged ruins of Dwarka or the eerie precision of Göbekli Tepe, each discovery is a thread in a tapestry still being woven. So let's keep pulling those threads. What forgotten knowledge might lie buried in the next dig site, or hidden in plain sight on some weathered manuscript? The past isn't done speaking yet. Now it's your turn. Which ancient mystery keeps you up at night? The Voynich manuscript's unreadable pages, the eerie alignments of the pyramids. Drop your thoughts in the comments, because history isn't a monologue, it's a conversation. And if you're craving more deep dives into the unknown, don't forget to hit subscribe. Who knows what secrets we'll uncover next? Until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember, sometimes the most extraordinary truths are the ones still waiting